Welcome to the Detailing Down Under podcast, the place for everything auto detailing in Australia right now. Here's your host, Dale Guthrie.
All right, g'day and welcome to the Detailing Down Under podcast, and welcome to our first ever episode featuring one and only Matt Gibb, all the way from Adelaide, South Australia. So thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
No worries at all. So where do I start with Matt? So I come across with Matt. He was on another podcast, an international podcast from America. So yeah, I was just listening along and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He's from Australia. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I reached out and we've been chatting ever since. And I thought when I started this podcast, I thought, I've got to get Matt on. He's wealth of knowledge within the industry. So I thought he could probably have a good story. And even on his other podcasts that he's been on, I think it's been a few already. And yeah, he's had some good insights. Yeah. So I thought that's pretty cool. I got to get this guy on. And yeah, if you haven't heard of him, check him out. And he's been around a bit. So yeah, welcome, Matt. And
thank you.
So,
yeah, 30 years next year, but I'm well and truly definitely on the. I call myself semi-retired. I don't detail customers' cars anymore. So a few coatings, bit of driving, a few other things. That's about it these days.
yeah,
Enjoying life.
nice. So where did you stumble across it, and how did you ever get into it back in the day?
So basically 1992, 93 was when I discovered it. My father has had a rather successful security company, basically a company that supplies security systems to industrial, commercial and homes, and obviously monitoring and all that, and had his own monitoring station and things like that. And he had a fleet of vehicles for his techs to go out and do work. And every 2 weeks, he would have this guy, Malcolm, come out and would detail his car, his work vehicle, and 2 or 3 of the technicians' vans and, couriers, Hiluxes, whatever they were. And obviously, other staff cars. And I just thought, I was there one day and I thought I'd just check out what this guy's doing and ask him some questions and watched him for a while. Then eventually got to know the guy and asked him more questions and got him to basically school me up on it over time, and went from there. And then it was, 6, 7 years of being a absolute rank. I wouldn't even call myself amateur, more like complete, amateur, complete rookie hobbyist who had no idea much. And, spent 6 or 7 years, using sort of DIY stuff. Maguire's, DIY range of gear, and then forums in 2000, and then professional from there. And yeah, basically from there. So Malcolm taught me the sort of stuff that today would seem prehistoric, but certainly it was a start. So, and it's just been a 30-year journey of just constantly learning, researching everything, and being a hardcore purist. Bit too much sometimes. Testing a lot of stuff, and delivering world-class quality results for the customers I had for the 15 years I had my business.
Yeah. Did you start from home, or did you have a little?
Yeah, I started with the garage at home, which a lot of people do, but obviously this place is 15 acres, so it's had a couple of pretty damn big sheds. So I converted them from what they were to detail set up with all the lighting and the shelving for all the gear and whatnot, and reels and all that sort of stuff. And then 2 or 3 years, 4 years of that, I think, and then it was off to a 1,000 square meter workshop with my dad, because he was selling he's sort of slowing down and getting his son-in-law to take over the business or the company, and then he was getting into MGE. He always wanted an MGB when he was young, and he finally got one, and then he started going, I'm going to race this thing on a racetrack, and then it just went from there. But he wanted a place to actually have his cars, and I needed a place to do my detailing, so we sort of went from there. So we had that. So yeah, and it was pretty damn good. I was pretty lucky to have that, I've got to say.
Mm.
Big place.
That's awesome. You can never have enough room.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So what were you offering back in those days? What sort of services?
This is probably, I'd say, 06, I think it was. I started my own business, I think, or 05, 06, after working for one dealership and then doing detailing on the side on my own as well. Basically, yeah, all I really wanted to do, and this is probably a mistake that a lot of people make, is doing high end detailing. I didn't care about doing work for dealerships, and that stuff. I wanted to do your mid range and your high end stuff. So it was a lot of paint correction back in the day. Obviously, I didn't really want to do interiors much because I knew either there is some money to be made in interiors, but it's certainly you can work pretty hard on interiors and make bugger all per hour. It's quite easy to do. But I certainly there's a lot of paint correction. Most of the time, it was $1,000 or $2,000, 3-step corrections to to the point where it was like perfect, as close as perfect as you can possibly get. And putting paint sealant on glass, wheels, trim, polishing trim with a product I made myself with natural silica in there to darken it. And once you machined it on there, it would never go away. It would be on there forever, basically, because the heat, with a bit of warmth you generate, would actually make it bond, basically like concrete, and just doesn't go away. So you can wash it thousands of times, and it will just never go away. So I used to do a lot of exterior trim polishing, taking wheels off, coating them, pretty much. And most of the time, it was just rotary. 2 steps of rotary and a step of DA most of the time. Sometimes it was rotary correct and finish all the way through. And that was, and obviously paint sealants and then coatings in 08, 09.
Yep. So you talk about polishing products, so you had a fair bit to do with them also in designing them and testing them?
Not designing them. I've tested a lot of them. I've actually done a fair bit of testing over the years for a number of companies, like a little tiny bit of work for Festool. And Makita, I've done a bit of stuff with, tiny little bit, mainly just sort of requesting to try some of their machinery out, and then got a couple of their new machines, like the PO6000C when that came out, and I tested 2 different ones. One of them had a problem. I thought I had a bit of an issue anyway, and then got another one that was not quite as bad, and then I basically sent them a spec sheet with like an updated version of what they should do with an updated version of that, like a Mark II. And actually, the machine speeds, what all the RPMs would be pretty much. Dynabraid, did a little bit of selling of Dynabraid stuff, like back in the long throw days. Like this is back early days of long throw, like 2007, 08, 09. I had the Dynabraid 61384, 85, and 75, which you would put onto a rotary or onto what I did, which is put it onto a stone grinding machine from Flex. And basically turn your rotary or your stone grinder into a 19 millimeter orbit forced rotation and basically random orbital machine. Probably 2 or 3 years before Roops came out, and I ran with that until 2016 because it was just so much more powerful than what the Roops Mark 1 was. It just destroys defects. So and obviously tested for another bunch of other companies as well. And obviously I've 2010, I actually found a range of products from a company in Sydney and got to know the owner of the company, who's now a global company, and they make stuff for some big name companies. And he's been sort of my mentor from about 2010 until about 2020 when it started to wind down a bit, and I talked to him every now and then. And he taught me so much stuff about, safety data sheets and ingredients in products, which ones are good and bad. Not that I know enough to say, oh, that's good and that's bad, just based on SDS. You can't. You've got to test it. But he taught me the best knowledge that I actually have. So without him, I would be probably nowhere near what I consider I am today. Like nowhere near.
Yeah. And that's what I found when I was listening to you on other podcasts. Although it was interesting, your story of there was a lot of rotary and a lot of product testing and stuff that probably we haven't really heard of before. So
well, I've always been a person that's basically tried to always be on the forefront. I love innovation. I love progress, and I just want to be a part of it. And I remember getting into Menzerna back in 2001, 2002, probably through Autopia and Detailing World. I'd imagine that was sort of someone said on a reply to I think one of my comments or posts, it was like men's earner has stolen Freckler's thunder, and I was like, okay, so men's earner is the new thing, so I'll get into it. And look, for the 7 years I had it until 2009, it was a really, really good thing. It had a couple of minor issues where you get some polishers and compounds where they just, after a short period of time, depending on how good the paint is, or some paints are really sticky and some paints aren't, and some are really buff really nice and some just don't buff. The polish doesn't want to film up on the surface at all, and it would go into little round bits of dried balls or string, and it would do that quite often. You'd have to blow your pad out and then put some fresh stuff down and finish it off. It wanted to sort of break down and sort of turn to cement basically. But for the 7 years I had it, I did achieve some really great results with it. But I've probably tested now since 92 about 150 brands of product, way more than I should. And it's a message to a lot of people to not sort of buy everything that you see that comes out that's new, because you can spend a lot of money and not have much in the way of savings. So waste a lot of money. It's fun, but a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right. And that's from my own personal experience. I pretty much just, you try a couple of things and then just stick to one thing and not try and use what everyone else uses or whatever, and whatever works for yourself. So I try not to go off board too much with what I use and stick to the same. And yeah, you get used to it then.
Yeah, and my advice to people is basically find out the characteristics of each product that you want to use that you like. How do you like them? And find the ones that provide that. For me, polishers, I like stuff that's water-based, that is single polish system, or it's, 2 different products or 3 max. Single polish system, basically what my mentor made, and you can use one all the way through and you don't have to change your liquid. Or you can go with your 2-step systems or your 3s or your 1s. But I like polishes that are water-based, that film on the surface consistently, perfect balance of that watery and oily lubrication, not dusty, not dry, not sort of starts out wet and then or is mega oily, like it's just all oil. You want that perfect balance of watery and oiliness. That's how I like it, and stuff that you can wipe off really easily, not things you have to, spray really aggressive stuff to get stuff off. So I hate stuff that's dusty and dry. I can control that with paraffin oil. I have for probably 10 years. Tiniest little drop of paraffin oil on a pad can change everything. It's a game changer when it comes to controlling dusting and dry buffing and things like that. Just one little drop every now and then. It's just a big difference. So yeah, that sort of thing. That's how I like it. So you got to find the characteristics that you like, and we'll work out what you like from each one, and then find those ones and stick with them until you find something new that you go, this is really unique and amazing. And then try it. Looks good, I'll try it. That's like that. Just keep going.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts these days on polishes and stuff that's on the market now compared to back in the day? Has it increased dramatically, or has it only gotten better into a certain point?
I think there's a long, long way to go yet. But I certainly think that there's a lot more better ones out there now. You talk about the 90s and earlier. A lot of them were full of naphtha, kerosene, clear coat softeners. Freckler had a lot of pine oil in there, so you could smell it. You walk into any body shop that had that, and you could tell they had Freckler because you could smell it from the door. And look, Freckler can work, and it can do a really good job if you know how to use it. It has its place for body shop, I think. Sometimes look, it's not the worst thing out there, but 70s, 80s, 90s, really, there was a lot of stuff out there that was solvent-based, solvent water blended, and it was smelly, it was dry, and what some of them would do basically is they would tear at the paint to correct it, or gouge at the paint to correct it, and then it would cut really heavily, but then it would leave really bad marring, or really bad hologramming or marks, and then you had to go through and do a lot of work to follow it up. Today, well, since 2010 at least, they've gotten a lot better. A lot more of them now are water-based. So there's a lot more water and less. But if there is any solvent in there, it's much better quality, and it's definitely much nicer to work with. A lot easier wipe off these days. I have always sort of been a person that's just going to spray some liquid on the surface and a towel and then remove it, not wipe it dry with a towel. Personal preference, but it is a lot better than it used to be. And a lot of compounds now finish a lot better than they ever did before. Like a lot of them were terrible. You'd compound and just make the paint almost worse looking than it started at. And then you'd pretty much second step would refine it all up and you'd look great. Now it's pretty much, Ripper's DA Fine or DA Coarse or even Fine Lab A50, which is formulation wise doesn't quite cut the mustard for me. But as far as when you do certain things with it can knock out some serious defects pretty quickly and give a very, very high level of clarity. So they are definitely a lot better than they used to be. There's still a lot. What it comes down to, though, is really about formulation. Some people have said, well-known people in the game have said, don't worry about, the formulation, just focus on the fact that it works, it does a job. But I've always wanted to know what the formula is and understand how it works and why, and be able to see that, okay, these products, they claim that they're good, but formulation's not just showing that it isn't. But look, there are a lot of really good ones out there. But sadly, there are still some out there that are not good enough. And we've got, I think personally, and maybe it's asking a bit too much and I'm a bit too anal, but we've got to get away from still relying on so many of them being pastes. We've got to get to a true liquid. I've always liked liquid polishers and compounds that are runny, not necessarily like water or milk, which you can do sometimes, but a few of them do exist, but a lot runnier than most of them still are, compound wise anyway. Some of them are just way too thick and too dry still, but they still work good, but they're just drier than I'd like, thicker than I'd like.
Yep. And that's another thing also, with a lot about paint correction probably in this one. But yeah, with pad technology as well, I know you've done a lot of bit around pad testing as well, and know a fair bit about that. So any insight on that?
Yeah, well, I've tested a lot of pads over the years, and I still have a fair chunk of them sitting around in my garage when I do some tinkering. And I've been buying from, up until recent times when I haven't needed to, been buying through a company in Europe that manufactures foam, and is one of the suppliers of one of the biggest names in the industry as far as pads. I think pad technology, as far as when it comes to long throw DA machines, there had to be a lot of change done to make the foam work better, because rotary foams just don't work with those things at all. It's a whole different ballgame. But yeah, look, it's we've got some really, really good wool pads out these days. The D-Bird wool from Damien at Final Inspection. We've got the couple of them. Probably Rupes is another one with their the yellow wool and the blue wool, which is quite nice. And there's probably a few other companies out there too, like Buff and Shine Euro wool. They're quite decent as well, and they can correct and finish a lot better than wools used to. Or at least finishing wise, they do finish a lot better than they used to. Wool used to be pretty bad. I mean, back in the old days, it was what I consider the old days, which is the 90s, which is not old. Being a detailer in the 70s must have been freaking hard. The chemicals back then, all the crap. But yeah, like we had the 4-ply twisted wool, which still has its place, but I wouldn't use it very much on modern paint. It's pretty aggressive. But you had the synthetic wools, your acrylic wool blends, and your silk wools, and all those other things. And the synthetic wools tend to cut not quite as much, but they can create a lot more heat and they can burn paint. I think, from my experience, I've found that you can put a burn mark with a solvent-based compound. You can put a burn mark in a panel with one of those a lot easier than you ever could with a twisted wool, with a natural 4-ply 100% twisted wool. But yeah, the foams have gotten a lot better. How much more evolution we're going to see in foam technology, I'm not sure. Hopefully more adaptable. Hopefully seeing most brands only carrying two different grades of foam would be all you need. Maybe 3 like Rupes at least. Definitely no more than 3. I think the days of seeing the need for 7 different grades of foam is history. You just don't need that many anymore because there's so much more. They'll probably become a lot more adaptable. You'll be able to have one that can do the job of 2 or 3 other foams in the past, and the other one can cater for the other 3 or 4. that we had.
Yeah,
Pretty
right.
much.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I really love, and we spoke about it before, how you used to finish a lot and probably still do with rotary compared to DA, which most people these days, we all run to the DA and finish off. But
Yeah.
with your experience on rotary, you find finish on rotary a lot better.
Yeah, and Damien from Final Inspections probably with the same. I think if you're a world class quality technician on a DA, free spinning DA machine, or even force rotation, you can probably get very, very close, and maybe on the rare occasion you can match it. I've heard that Rennie Doyle saying that, because I know him reasonably well, that sometimes with force rotation you can finish better than rotary can. I've never achieved it, but he might be able to do it. But the thing is a rotary. I mean, the biggest thing with the DA is you've got pad drag. Like Ivan LaCroix was saying recently in a video with the guy from Hawk Detail, which is Nick, I know him too, saying how, like, the DA, if you're running the machine, you're running the DA machine and the plate and the pad are spinning in a certain direction, then all of a sudden it'll just start, having some inertia and then it'll go back the other direction. And that sort of pad drag means that I often find that if I've rotary corrected a panel, even if I've done one step of rotary or two, as soon as I run any random orbital over it, whether it be 3 mil, 5 mil, 6 mil, like my Metabo, which is dual orbit, so it's 6 mil and 2.5, or even a long throw like a 12, a 10, a 14, a 16, or a 19, or a 21, as soon as you run it over it with the same pad, the same liquid, or even anything softer, the color intensity just drops off. It just goes away. It seems not massively, but it's like with a rotary, you achieve this deep, dark, sort of glassy look. And as soon as you run it over with a random afterwards, it's just instantly drops off. And maybe I don't think that's just me. That's probably experience a number of people probably get. But I think you really, really can achieve incredible results with any machine, with the DA especially. But I just find that what I love about rotary is it's smooth. You can put any size plate on there that you want. You can use double-sided pads. Pretty much you can have a rotary and nothing else and achieve anything you want to do if you're good enough. With a DA, you need, a 3-inch machine, you need a 1-inch machine, you need a 5-inch, maybe one machine that has 5 or 6 inches, and you can probably do that with one machine. But really running an 8-inch pad with a DA is pretty much not going to work too good because it's going to be very, very, not very aggressive at all. And it's, not ideal. But I just find rotaries to be far more enjoyable. They're almost like therapeutic to use. You just sit there and you're just gliding along, and you can get right up to the edges. Whereas with a long throw, if you don't, let's say you were doing a bonnet and you just decided I'm not going to mask the edge. You didn't raise the bonnet up above the front fender. You can put these big zigzaggy sort of marks right in there, or in the metal of that paint, or in that paint, right on that edge. And good luck getting that out. And that's the mistake I've made in the early days of long throw, where I don't tape all the time. Sometimes I do, but now I lift the bonnet up. But I've made some mistakes before on panels like that. But I just love the smoothness of a rotary. I started with a rotary and I know how to use it. I'm not as good as my mentor Pete is, who is, he can use a rotor on any car, any paint, and he could never hologram once. But it does take a lot of skill to use and to really master as far as getting a flawless finish. But when you can, it's extremely rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's something I think, well, with the student I currently have, and I might have another one soon, I think starting with a rotary, or even my current student, all he knows is DA. So I've taught him DA, then I've gone to force rotation, and we're now going to go into rotary, and I'm going to teach him that, because I think if you don't have any of that experience and you want to do a serious job on a car sometime, doing edge work with a large throw orbit or even a 3-inch short orbit's not really ideal sometimes. I think if you started with a rotary and you teach them rotary, they can pick up a DA and use it like a baby's toy and it's not a problem. Whereas some people that have used nothing but DAs, they go to rotary and they just freak out. They're not hard to use, they're just hard to master.
yeah, And I can definitely vouch. I started because my background's in the body shop. Was a panel beater, so back in the day, that's all we knew is rotary, and that's where I started from. And then once we all did get a repairs or whatever, and go for it, and then that's all I use lately. But yeah, I have recently used the rotary on my own car, older car, just to have that extra bite. And yeah, they definitely still have it, and I think they have their place still.
And they are still relevant. And look, there's a lot of, I think, a lot of conjecture over a rotary cuts faster, and you can do a job with a rotary faster. It's pretty much 50-50. I mean, it's pretty much sometimes with the DA, you can correct really, really quickly with the DA really quickly, quicker than a rotary sometimes, and do it in one step. With a rotary, you have to do probably at least you can sometimes get away with one, but it's freaking hard. But 2 steps pretty much is all you need these days. But a rotary sometimes just isn't as good as far as cutting sometimes. But where I find long throw DAs struggle, for me personally, that's all I can say, is let's say somebody has sanded a panel or a car with a low quality, non-uniform sanding paper or disc, or they've sanded a certain way, put some deep marks in there, and they're not uniform. The DA tends to struggle. You get the rotary out, bang, no problem. Annihilates it pretty quickly. So it's not really. They pretty much work out about the same, about even as far as time goes. Sometimes a rotary is faster, sometimes it's not, but it's just depends on the paint you're working on at the time, pretty much. But they have rotary. Everything has its place. Everyone should pretty much have as many tools as they can get their hands on to make their life easier. 1 inch, 2 inch machine, 3 inch machine, 5 inch in the rotary, maybe even force rotation. So have it all, and you got all the tools.
Absolutely. So probably going back a little bit, back in the day, like how hours wise when you're on a rotary polish and then big end jobs, what sort of time frame were you spending on them?
And again, back when I first started, and for a lot of years, I wasn't that efficient. I certainly have learned a lot of my efficiency stuff from Ivan LaCroix, but I would say somewhere between 20 and 40 hours, which is a long, and these days, you probably, I mean, Damien has said to me before a number of times that he can basically do any car, sanding or not, in 40 hours, no matter how bad it is. But yeah, about 20 to 40 hours, I'd say, which is a fair bit of time. It's a lot of chunk of time, and it's certainly not something that's you're going to do all the time anymore. But about that. But yes, there's some people that can probably do a wet sand and a rotary 2-step or 3-step in 8 hours. I can't. I'm probably my biggest flaw, I think, is that I get in the zone and start polishing, and I just sort of get lost in it. And next thing you know, I've spent way too long. And I used to like doing a lot of rural long cycle polishing with a rotary. These days, with any machine, I'm pretty much short cycle. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute, maybe 2.5 minutes on a rotary if I really want to. But I used to be like 6-7 minutes and just lose myself in the moment and just be going and going and going, thinking more and more and more I do, the better it's going to get. But there is a certain point where the product just breaks down and you're not going to get any more. You're not going to achieve any more result, and you're just chewing paint off. So I certainly in the early days made a lot of mistakes and wasted a lot of time and removed more paint than I should have.
So back then, was it more like when you were spending the time and thought it went over it a bit? Was it more of an enjoyable factor that trying to get it perfection, and rather than not worried about the time factor, that I'm going to get this right and this is awesome? I love using the rotary.
I thought that $1,500 for $2,000, which nobody else in Adelaide, I think was charging at the time, except maybe one other guy who I'd never been managed to find out where he was. But some guy said this guy's awesome, and he spends 3 days on one car. I thought that was plenty of money for the time I'd spent, but it works out it really wasn't that much. But it's pretty much just getting lost in the moment. And I initially, for a number of years, few years, I basically was like, you're bringing the car to me to achieve a certain result, and now it's my car, and I'm going to make it nuts. That's a mistake a lot of people make, and I made it too. You know, you turn it into your car, and you want to make it perfect. Problem is, you start doing more than what the customer's asking for and paying for, and you are also removing more paint than you should. So, and I thought when I first started as a professional, before a professional, more like an amateur, my 6th, 7th, 8th year, I suppose, of sort of being a rookie. I thought everybody's polishing paint to absolute perfection and not leaving one single mark on the car. That's just not reality. You can do it. I've done it a few times, but it's not something you want to do all the time because you'd never have any paint left, especially these days, how thin paints are. So, I spent way too much time sometimes and removed more paint than I should have.
Yeah, totally agree, because I think even these days, everyone should be probably winding it back a little bit, not trying to get the 100% or the 90%, but just because the paint is getting thinner, so I think we need to look after that long term, not just, you got to think of the other guy, especially with wet sanding these days. You hear of wet sanding.
Damp.
So
damp, dry, damp, wet, whatever you're doing, you got to watch yourself. But they look, you can use a 4,000 grit Mercury Abralon, or a 5,000 Trizact, or an 8,000 Trizact, or a 12,000 micro mesh, which I have all those, and remove 1 micron, 2 microns, and just totally transform how the paint looks. Like sanding to me makes polishing look like crap in comparison. Like, not in terms of obviously how it looks. Once you sand something, it looks pretty bad. But you could correct and polish a car with a rotary 3 times on one car and have it look amazing. You sand it once with 2,000 to 4,000 grit, and then polish it again, it'll look 4, 5, 6 times better. It just totally transforms it, because even if you're not, using interface pad and you're not taking orange peel out, really, it just transforms it. I mean, I did my Ford, probably spent 200 hours on my Ford AU XR6, to the point where there's literally like 5 microns of clear coat left on all of it. In about 8 spots, there literally is none left at all. There's this faint sort of light blue coming through. And I've put 5 or 6 layers of coating over the top of it to basically keep it alive, hold it together. And I polish it for years with Menzana with a rotary. Every year or two, I'd polish it again. And then I've left it since 2012. I think I did it one more time really gently in 2016. And I basically got the bonnet to the point where it literally is dead flat, virtually dead flat. And usually that's where you start running out. You run out of clear coat when it starts getting to a very faint, the orange peel gets to a very faint ripple. You pretty much, with Fords anyway, you basically end up running out of clear before you even get it flat in some cases. And, I then Trizact 4,000 Mercury Abralon it by hand on the bonnet, and it made it look like I'd polished it another 5 times. Like, it just transformed it.
Wow.
So I love sanding. I'm not that good at it really, but I'm okay with the machine doing it. But it's just amazing what they can achieve and how little paint you can remove.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind a bit of sanding here and there. So these days with I always want to ask is what the detailing culture is like in your area probably right now. If you think back, and even from back in the day, what it was like, was there much competition compared to what it was now?
I'd say as far as today goes, I'm probably not really the best person to ask, because I'm sort of I'm not in the game, and I'm sort of been away for a little bit. I've sort of not been on any group pages, not talked to anyone really locally here too much. But back in 05, 06, 07 to about 2010, I'm sure there was plenty of competition out there as far as doing your pre-sale details and typical detailing. Because I was doing high end, there was really only 1 or 2 other people that were doing close to what I was doing. So, and it really wasn't that there weren't that many people doing what I was doing. So competition was probably fairly minimal. Obviously, I didn't do a great job for many years as far as getting business in the door. I would call myself a business failure, but technically we delivered world-class quality results for the customers I did have. But yeah, I think today competition is based on, I suppose, that from about up until probably 2019, 2020, maybe 21, when I've sort of stepped away and not looked at things much. There's probably, I think there's over 400 detailers in SA, maybe more than that now. I think competition is extremely rife. It's very, very full on, I would think. This is probably a stab in the dark or a guess. But there's a lot more than there used to be. I will say this, there's probably a lot more better ones than there used to be. I think back in 05, 06, there were probably maybe half a dozen guys that were brilliant, maybe another 10 to 15 that were really, really, really good, and there was a lot of pretty average people out there. But everyone's got to start somewhere. Everyone's a certain level, and yeah, it's pretty much. I would think now its competition would be pretty hardcore, because the reason I actually stepped out of it was because just years and years of just doing it for so long. I wanted to do some other things, and I started seeing that from about 2010, 2011 onwards, that the market was going away from, no one wanted to pay anything more than $1,000, and we're getting to the point now where, at least what I've seen anyway, that it's like the quality that people expected is the same as 10 years ago, but what they want to pay is like three quarters less, it seems.
Mm.
And I just said, well, my one steps that were probably maybe too much correction. I had two different versions. I had one that was one service that was like two hours of polishing, and it was half an hour to an hour of preparation. And I would use 2 to 4 pads, 3 different liquids from the same single polish system. So you got one for medium paint, one for soft, one for hard. But you can mix them all together and do different ratios pretty much, which is quite unique. And I could run that one liquid over those 3 or 4 pads in a couple of minutes on a panel and achieve some pretty damn good results. That one, or my other one step was basically about 80 to 90% correction, which is probably a bit too much, because you end up looking so good that no one wants to pay for anything higher. And my one step, which was 80, 90% correction, was $700 in like 2015, 16, 17. And some people now aren't doing that sort of level of work and only charging half as much, or just over half as much. So, yeah, I think competition these days is pretty tough. I'd say it's pretty full on getting people in the door. But again, I've been away for a bit, so I'm not sure how correct I am, or if I'm not correct at all.
Yeah. And that's what with this podcast, I thought I want to reach out around the country and see what everyone is like in their areas and stuff like that. I think we all have a different story in each state and town. So it'd be interesting to know once I talk to a few more people.
Different markets. Every place is different. You got certain markets. Like Sydney market will be different to here. It's all going to be different.
Yeah.
And you got people that have. There's a guy in Adelaide here that I haven't seen his work yet, but I might actually do some. He might come in for some training down the track. Who does nothing? His main focus is JDM. So he's a JDM detailer. He just wants to do JDM stuff. So he wants to do skylines and other things like that, and he focuses on that, and that's it. And that's his niche. So there's niche markets out there too, that people are into, and they're just focusing on those niches. So you can have really competitive marketplace, but you can find a niche that no one else is offering, and you could do that. So yeah, much as competition can be tough, I mean, this is why I think, and I really wish that the industry would eventually get to the point where you're never going to have utopia, right? You're never going to have everyone getting along and everyone working together perfectly. But if we can get the industry to where they back off on the ego a fair bit, and just sort of network better and connect better, and even if we don't always get along and agree with certain things, we just get along as best as possible and raise each other up rather than knocking the other guys down and undercutting and things like that, it'll be a far better industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You hear that everywhere. And probably one thing where I am and what I do is there's a couple of us so I'm based in Mount Gambier, South Australia, so not far from Adelaide, probably 4.5 hours. So
about 4.5.
Yeah, so we've got a good group down here, and there's probably about 3 of us that sort of talk in with each other. And I'll recommend them if someone's like, oh, you're too busy, or I don't do that, or whatever, and I just say, go to him, and then a few days later, it'd be like, oh, thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, got them sorted and stuff like that. And I was like, well, that's great. And then there's others that we don't recommend because we haven't seen much of their work. And
yeah, that's right. They've proven themselves yet. You don't know what they're like, and you don't want to recommend something, and then it turns out pretty bad or pretty average.
yeah, and I'm only recommending the well-established other details in town. So myself, I've only been around 5 years, but the others have been longer than that. But yeah.
The last time I was down in Mount Gambier, I didn't really notice too much in the way of detailers out there, but I didn't do a lot of digging. But I think I've seen a few business cards of a few of them. Most of them, I think, well, the two I found were mobile only. I think at that point, so where they're at, I'm not sure. And obviously, we have a lot of turnover and have a lot of turnover in this industry where we lose people. Some people come in and they do really, they go gangbusters and open a shop, or they open their mobile business, and within a year, 2 years, 3 years, they're gone. Even less, one summer and they're gone. Sometimes, but there's other ones that have been around for ages and ages, and they're just doing great. So
Yeah. Yeah, there is. It's starting to pick up down here. Like, there's a lot of little ones. Like, there's only like myself. I'm still working from home. There's still a lot that work from home, and then there's probably two bigger ones at fixed locations. So it's getting out there. But what works for me is working from home.
But it's good to see that you are networking together, because wherever you are, people are in Australia. If wherever you happen to be, you can connect with other guys. It's like one thing I said on I think there was a episode of Randall's podcast, and I put a comment up, and so I think Sydney actually commented on it. I mentioned it and said, Matt says, what I see with the Air Force One is what I hope to see with the future of the industry, where it's like, not well globally, but like more people networking, working together on projects, or just getting along better. And I said, another detailer does not have to be the enemy. And Rennie was sort of taken aback by that a bit, and so that was pretty cool. They're not. Don't see other detailers as a threat. Like, and even if they're doing really well and they become more successful than you, like, don't end up. Tall poppy syndrome tends to be a bit of a problem in this country, I think, where you got to want to knock someone else down because they're doing so well. Don't be upset about their success. Like, they can have plenty of success, and so can you. Doesn't mean that you have to be upset about their success.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not. Other retailers aren't the enemy. They can be your enemy if you choose to make it that way, but they don't have to be. They won't necessarily never be your friend either, but at least they can be a peer in the industry and get along and help each other out to some degree.
What I've heard before, there's enough cars for everyone as well. There's plenty of cars to go around.
Oh yeah, and you think about it. You got how many working days in a year? 340. So, excuse me, 340 or whatever it is. Even if you had a team of people, there's only so many cars you can cover in a year that you can work on. There's only so many, and you're never going to get maximum market share. So the idea is of just, I want all the market. Well, good luck with that. It's not going to happen.
Exactly. Especially where I am, I only cater for a certain market, and then there's a lot of others that will do everything, all the interiors or just the express washes and stuff like that. So for those who don't know, I actually run DPG detailing in Mount Gambier, so jump on and check us out. But yeah, another reason why I got this podcast going, to connect the industry. I think we don't have one here, so I thought, well, it's a good way to start off and get everyone talking and get on board.
It is good. You got to have your own for your own country. You really got to have one, because there's plenty of them in America, and the UK, I'm sure, but Australia needs its own voice.
Yeah, not saying I'm it, but like you said about America, and Rennie, I listen to Rennie Doyle. He's pretty influential, I reckon, and he does a lot of cool stuff. And what's the other one? The Detail Solutions. So Alex from Detail Solutions. I listened to that one a fair bit. So
I started listening to that last night, and boy, there was the one I listened to. Holy cow, there was some stuff going on there. It was like, wow. someone finally said what I've been thinking the whole time. But yeah, very interesting. And yeah, some of those are long too. Like the one with David Patterson, I'm like an hour in, and it's 2 hours long. Like, that's a long time.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, no, I try and I'm aiming for an hour for most episodes, so
Yeah.
we'll work with that. But I'm happy to go over it.
But it's good listening, though. I tell you what, it is very interesting. So
Yeah, and that's where I got the inspiration from. And there's Aussies been on them ones, and you've been on some overseas ones as well, and that's where I found you. And I reached out to a couple that have been on the overseas ones, and I've talked to them already, and I hope to get them on this one as well, because I think there's a lot of people that we don't know of, and we have a pretty cool industry here that no one knows about.
yeah, it's certainly an industry that's very, very big. And that's one thing I think I'm disappointed about with, and probably just going off topic a bit, but disappointed about the fact that back in 2006 it was, I got my Metabo SXE 450 TurboTech, which is it's a random orbital sander, and obviously one of those ones that's sort of like a more like the with Chinese or Japanese style, where it's not your typical shape polisher or typical shape, but it's a dual orbit machine. And I'm like, oh, dual orbit. Okay, that's interesting. I reckon maybe the next evolution then is going to be basically variable, dual or variable. And in 2012, I contacted, I don't know why it took me 6 years, but I contacted 30 power tool manufacturers in Europe alone. Some of the big names, Eisenblatter, Evenstock, Flex, a bunch of others, and said, look, the next generation evolution of long throw DA is going to be variable orbit, or maybe dual. You could have dual and variable based on, you could have dual for some, and other ones you could have variable. I don't know how many orbits you're going to have, how the hell it's going to work, but that's where it's going to go. And they all came back, well, some didn't reply, some came back by email, and some came back by phone, and basically said, all you need is a rotary. And I was going, I said, there's all these people all around the world, more and more of them, especially in Southeast Asia, buying machines, getting into detailing, and we got a chance here to make a machine that's truly unique, and nobody wanted to do anything. And we could have had variable orbit like the UDOS friggin' 3 or 4 years, 5 years before they even patented it, and just weren't interested. And I tried to get people to sort of buy a DA machine in 2012, 13. You know, just average everyday people, the car enthusiasts, buy one and do their own polishing. You know, if they're the kind of person that doesn't want to pay a detailer to do it because they're afraid they're going to damage their car, buy this, buy that. And as usual, I'm ahead of the game, and then, but too early. And then 2 or 3, 4, 5 years later, everyone starts buying DA machines and dry and polish and doing their own cars. So, not that I'm a massive visionary or a visionary maybe at all, but I just saw that was where it was going to go. As far as, and they just weren't interested. They said rotary is all you need. Well, yes, in Europe, a rotary, technically yes, you can do everything with a rotary, but I don't want to always use a rotary, nothing else all the time, because sometimes it doesn't want to play ball for you. It just doesn't. It's not that easy to finish out with a rotary all the time. It can happen. Holograms can happen. You can make them. You can make a hologram really, really bad. You can make a hologram extremely fine. It all comes down to technique, and usually it's lower, reducing pressure, and obviously working damp. Not dry buffing, and reducing your machine speed down and down and down and down. But yeah, they just said that, and I was like, can't believe it.
Always the way.
You
mentioned
always too early to profit from any new ideas. It seems like that's.
You mentioned training, so you say you do a bit of that on the side. Is that correct?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not sort of trying to make a business out of it or anything like that. It's just like I get the occasional person that'll contact me saying, "Oh, I saw you on a podcast," or someone like the main guy that's been helping me with this a little tiny bit has been this guy called Enver from Absolute Perfection here in Adelaide. And the guy, I met him back in 07, and I showed him the Dynabraid 61385 heap, which you put on a rotary or any other machine that's got a rotary spinning action, but it might be a grinder or something. And I showed him, large orbit back in I think it was 09 or something like that, I think it was. And he's gone from strength to strength, and him and his son now doing really brilliant work, doing high quality working their asses off. And he's sending the occasional person that asks him for training to me because he hasn't got time. and he really rates me. So I've got this young guy Ali now at the moment who's doing the occasional sessions with me for 4 hours or 8 hours in a day for a very reasonable rate, and he wants to learn, all the polishing side of things. So I don't really have a setup anymore or a place I do it that much. Obviously, I have some people. I've had him come to the garage 2 or 3 times, and then obviously he's now got a friend of his that has a body shop, so a new place. So he's actually working from in there in a bay. So I'll probably go down there and I'll show both of them guys, all my knowledge with the Rotary. So I do offer it here or there. Obviously to the right people, to people that actually want to actually get in the industry for the right reasons and do quality work and hang around for a long time, not someone that wants to be a fly-by-nighter and be dodgy or just. And I have had, unfortunately, a number of people contact me and ask me to teach them how to do polishing. And as soon as I mention anything about any particular price, and it's not that I'm charging, I'm probably like 2/3 to half the price that some people are, and they're still worth the money. As soon as I mention anything about price, they just disappear and don't reply again. It's like, well, you want me to teach you all this stuff so you can make money and I make nothing. I've got 30 years of knowledge and expertise from my chemistry mentor. I can pass on. You want it for nothing. Sorry, just not how it is. It's not that I'm not a money hungry person, not greedy at all. But you can't live for free. Everyone's got to make something.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I think I haven't really seen much of it in Australia. Do you know of any other training happening in here at the moment?
So the guy I've known for a lot of years in Melbourne knows a guy who's been around for probably as long as I have. I can't quite know exactly how to pronounce or spell his last name, but I think it's Peter Kapiris. I think he's in Campbelltown, Sydney, and he's done training with certain. He's very selective of who he trains. He wants the right people, not same as me. He wants the right people for the right reasons, and he offers it. I think he's like $3,000 for a week's training. Rotary, all the other stuff. Probably even probably teaches them how to do shampooing and encapsulation, and maybe all that sort of stuff. Everything really. And then there's the guy who's Justin, who's the Australian distributor for Osram products, which I found in 2010-11, when I found their denim pad orange peel removal system. I started tinkering with that. And I think I even sent Todd Cooperrider a couple of denim and velvet pads back in those days to try, because he didn't know about them either. And I think Justin offers training as well. And both of those guys would be, probably, highly skilled and be worth the money.
No, it's interesting.
Any other ones? Maybe this other guy in Sydney. I'm not sure he's Melbourne or Sydney, but I think he brings in a few. I can't think of what his name is again. But I think he does. I think he's the IGL Australian distributor. I think he does training as well. There might be others as well. Maybe others. I'm not sure though. They're the ones I know of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know I wouldn't mind some training myself just to see if what I'm doing is 100% and what I can improve on as well. I think we all need some training every now and then and invest in yourself. So I think
not even training. I mean, I'd love to go and catch up with Jason Rose, because I've known him for a lot of years. We've communicated backwards and forwards over the years. Probably never on a phone call, but we've obviously talked about each other on podcasts. We've texted a number of times. And he's my favourite guy in the industry, because he's just genuinely a really cool guy, and he's extremely knowledgeable, and he's just loves being around people and just teaching, and he even learns off them. So he's genuine. He's what you would call a real passionate guy. He's not in it to sort of be a trainer and sort of be a big head. He's just really passionate about it, and he's pretty amazing. So I'd love to go see him and actually do training with him, but it comes down to either trying to get him over here, again, for obviously Rupe's Australian distributor, and try and get him out to Adelaide or Melbourne at least. Because my chances of going to America again and going all the way over to Colorado, again, I have been there, but when I was there, they didn't have a building then. They're pretty slim, because I've got, new house build next year. and it's gonna. And what I'm doing these days is not. It's not as much money as what I was doing having a business, but also didn't have one good thing is I don't have the costs of a business either. So chances of getting over to there really, I could probably do it, but it's a fair bit of money. It's just like me going to SEMA, like it's accommodation and everything else. It starts adding up.
What it'd be awesome to go over there to Rupes training for sure. What year did you go to SEMA?
I've never actually been to SEMA though. I never have, but I actually prefer to go to Auto Mechanica actually in like Switzerland and Germany. There's one coming up in September, and the guys from Gecatex in France, which is my foam supplier, they may make their own foam, but I think they may either make their own foam or they buy it from Foam Partner or Recticel. Not sure which. That's the main company. Recticel now owns Foam Partner as well. And they're all going to be over there with a booth because they do tack rags. They do obviously the foam pads and the wool pads and other things. And they've got robot covers, and they basically are an OEM supplier to all the car manufacturers' paint plants and some of the Formula One teams. So they're over there. I'd love to get Auto Mechanica. That's where I'd rather be. She's Auto Mechanica. SEMA would be great, but Auto Mechanica would be awesome. But again, chances of that pretty slim. I'll get to Europe eventually. I'm saving for it right now, but I'll probably go there when there's one of those on.
Yep. And that's one thing we don't have in Australia. You have like little car shows here and there, but we don't really have like a SEMA like. We've got our Summer Nats and Show and Shines and stuff like that, but there's nothing really like that.
The only other thing you have, but it's not, it sort of is detailing, but it's a very tiny percentage, is the crash repair industry expo every year. But it's always in bloody Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane. It's like, I understand why, because Adelaide's too bloody small, But I mean, I'd like to sort of think about going to that, but it's going to be the same, polish, compound, pad, towel suppliers over and over and over again, and everything else is painting, which I love, but I can't paint for shit. So, so because I've actually written some articles for Australasian Paint and Panel magazine back in 2012 and 2011, 13, I think. And I was going to do one on the UDOS actually when they actually had initially announced it, and then later on when they were releasing it. But because it wasn't available in Australia, they didn't let me do it. So I was like, unless it's available here, can't do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, and then obviously through Sam Street at Australasian Paint and Panel, who's the editor of the magazine, I've obviously know about the crash repair industry expos and all that stuff. And there's car wash expos and all that stuff as well, but that's about it for here. And unfortunately, being in Adelaide, it's a bit wasted here in Adelaide, but I just love, I don't want to live anywhere else. I love it here, and family's here, so moving somewhere else just for my own career is a bit too much, not much gain, a lot of loss.
Yeah, Adelaide is a nice place.
Too much, not enough gain, too much loss.
Yeah. I probably already know the answer, but new products, what would you like to see in the industry, you reckon, if you're from the outside looking in?
First one I'd like to see, and it might be something that only I'm interested in and I'll never sell, but I'm doing it right now with paint coatings, wheel arch coating. I've always been somebody that's fanatical about clean wheel arches. And I've always wanted someone to bring out a wheel arch coating that you could put on, you could spray it on or spread it on, and pretty much, no matter how muddy they get, you high pressure it, and it comes out black and perfect every time. And lasts, 6 months, 12 months or something, or whatever it is. And I've already put 2 layers of a coating from where I work on mine, on my Toyota 86 GTS, and high pressure, bang, everything comes off. And when you go to wash it next time, even if it's been raining, you go to high pressure, you go to clean it with something, it could be a microfiber applicator or a sponge or whatever it is, and there's hardly anything on there. That's what I want. Another one I thought about, but I know it's probably a pipe dream and will never happen. And this is something that bugs me, is a coating that you could put on a car that would act like two magnets magnets with the poles opposing each other, to where you put a coating on a car basically, and it acts a bit like that, and any ferrous metal fallout, iron fallout can't bond to the car. Because what annoys the hell out of me is the fact that you put any coating on there you like, and I drive my Toyota 86, which is my daily at the moment, the AU's in the shed. And with every friggin' 2, 3, 4 weeks, I've got to clay the damn thing or hit it with a fallout remover because there's all this, it's constantly getting fallout all over it all the time. And it's like you put a coating on a car and it's going to protect and do stuff, but then the paint just gets road film on it and gets fallout, and it's always getting it. And I'm having to clay the thing so much that I'm basically slowly but surely wearing away the coating. And then because I've clayed it, I've basically got to start, if I was more anal about the car until it becomes a weekend cruiser, which is going to be in a year or so, I'm not polishing it afterwards because I don't want to take all the paint off again, like I did with the Ford. So I want a coating that basically massively repels against fallout because it just doesn't head in. Like, I'm probably one of the most anal guys that's been in the industry that just wants his car's paint smooth all the time, and if it isn't, it drives me insane. I'm the worst when it comes to that. If it isn't smooth, it pisses me off. And I probably clay that coater every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and maybe after the fourth week I'll wash it with Expert Miracle Cleaner, which basically is the brand that my mentor's company, and that stuff will take all the road film off of a car. All the you get the white cars, you get that grey film after a while, or all the build up, all the in-ground dirt and that pulls all that off. And I wash it with that, and that'll bring back the colour again, bring back that sort of nice luster. But it just drives me nuts. There's got to be some way to make something to where it massively repels fallout or just prevents it from happening. Obviously, that's going to kill off your fallout remover chemical sales, but which is not good. But that's the downside of it. But yeah, fallout just drives me nuts.
Yeah,
and I don't know, it must be a problem here in Adelaide. I'm not sure because I spoke to Damien at Final Inspection about it, and he doesn't have that same problem. I'm just like, man, I get it all the time.
it must be where you're parking.
It's where I'm parking at work is probably one reason, because whenever the painter shows up to paint paint sensors for cars, because obviously the company fits those as well. As soon as I see the van there, I'm just driving inside and parking them down the back of the shed because I'm not leaving it out there for him to cover it in overspray every 2 days. Because he's there like probably 3 times a week painting sensors. And I'm like, nah, in the shed. So I don't have a problem with overspray because it's he doesn't make a mess, which is good for one. And two, it's obviously down in the shed straight away. So it's away from him. But it must be a high fallout area for some reason.
Yep.
Whenever I put the fallout remover on the car, I don't see much purple at all, but you feel it and you go, ugh.
That's
outside of that, other new products, I'm not really sure, really. I mean, I suppose I've been out of the game a bit long to really know what else is going to come out, really. You got anything? Got any thoughts?
No, I just remember back in the day what you were saying years ago about your universal pad.
Oh yeah, universal pad idea. That was a vision
Yeah.
I had in 07, and look, it may never happen.
Mm.
But I think there are universal pads at the moment when it comes to it. Well, I consider it that there's two different types, or there would be eventually two different types of universal pads. The first type is type A, is a pad that can be used on any machine type, doesn't matter what, and it will actually work perfectly, work great. And that's where the blue foams I buy from France, from Gecatex, work so well. They're a pad that's got very, very tiny foam cells or foam pores, so they finish extremely well, but they also have the density that to allow you to correct to some degree, or light cut or remove wool marks on its own. And it's basically the closest thing to a universal pad that we have at the moment, because you can do light cutting, heavy polishing, semi-finishing with the one pad. And except for maybe the darkest and the softest paints, you can finish out most paints with that, no problem.
Yeah, awesome.
And it holds its density. It was designed by the guys in France to basically be supplied to all the car manufacturers in Europe paint plants to where a guy can buff with this one pad for the whole day. He can blow it out, clean it, whatever else, but it'll hold its density, most of its density all day. You can literally polish with it non-stop for hours and hours, and it will probably only lose 60% of it, maybe 40 or 30% of its density. So it won't go soft real quick or very fast at all. And even if it softens somewhat, it still holds probably 60-70% of its capabilities even after that. So pretty amazing pad. But the other type obviously is going to be, if it ever would be to come out, it might be some new revolutionary textile, and there obviously are a number of different textiles that come out eventually. It could be foam that's adaptable, that's you can adjust it, do different things with it, or it could be a new revolutionary textile that basically allows you to cut, polish, finish all the one. But I think we're a long, long way away from that still, I think. And look, it may never happen, but I have these sort of visions sometimes, and some of them might be a pipe dream, some of them might be a great idea. I think I'm sort of half visionary, half nutbag. I'm not sure which. Yeah, like half visionary, sort of half madman, sort of Mad Hatter, I suppose, half and half. Some ideas are great, some of them are terrible.
Well, I'm sure everyone out there's got their universal go-to pad anyway these days.
Yeah. Well, the blue one's mine.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, you can get it in the SDO. HDO is slightly different. It's been tweaked a bit. So it's fractionally more aggressive, I find, but the SDO blues basically is the same pad, I believe. And based on from me picking up a couple of those and looking at them, it's pretty much the same foam. So I like those mainly.
Yeah.
But as far as other new products, I really don't know. I mean, tools wise, I had an idea, and it's again probably another idea that's a pipe dream and just will never work. But I had an idea of a couple of years ago about a dual orbit machine that was a long throw random orbital, and you could then basically imagine if you know what a PO6000C Makita is, right? You've seen those, haven't you? Right. Basically, imagine one like that, but obviously more ergonomic, that has a random orbital mode with say 12 or 14 mil orbit, but then you flick the switch over and it's got 6 mil orbit force rotation.
Yeah, right.
So you could do that. Because the problem with the Makita PO6000C is, and even its baby brother, which is the BO6050, which I have, and I've modified it and I've used one of those bench grinding machines to grind down the backing plates. So I've got 3 different size backing plates. So I've got 5-inch, 5.5, and 6.5. Because originally, basically, when you buy a PO6050, it's a 6-inch machine and that's it. But if you actually grind down, leave one plate original, buy another 2, and then grind the urethane layer down halfway for one, and the other one you go all the way to the hard plastic. You got 3 different sizes you can fit on there. But that's got exactly the same specs as the PO6000C, same machine speeds, everything. It's just that the motor and the gearbox is nowhere near as powerful. But it's a very, very nice machine. But if you had a machine like the 6000C, where you could have 6 mil orbit forced and 12 mil orbit random, it's a pretty good machine. But again, I have no idea if it'll ever work. It's just one of those ideas that popped in my head. So call me a mad hatter or a visionary, either way, I don't care. I'm not sure what I am, but this sort of stuff I think about, and I just love innovation, and I want things to happen. But again, who knows?
You never know. You got a dream.
Yeah, I think it's I think there's still more evolution to do with rotaries too. I mean, there is an idea that the reason why rotary doesn't always, but can hologram, or at least to Rupes anyway, or Rupus, can leave a scratch pattern in a car that you won't see under most light, but only under a microscope you can see it. If you were to get a rotary and make it such a way that the outside, I suppose, inch or inch and a half of the pad and the plate was powered by one motor, and the center of the pad and plate was separate and it was powered by a different one, and they both ran at exactly the speeds that made them spin. All of the pad, center and the outside, spun at exactly the same speed or same velocity. You wouldn't have any hologramming. I believe the reason why rotaries can hologram is because the center of the pad is rotating at a certain speed, and the outside, because it's got longer distance to go, is different. So therefore, if you had them both individually powered and they were set up to where they all, when you turn it on and turn the trigger, hit the trigger and put it in lock, and then put it in whatever speed you want, it's going to be exactly the same, But maybe it's a lot of work to engineer that and hardly any gain. So it's probably never going to happen. And that's the only way I can imagine you can have a rotary that doesn't hologram. So, but we can still see a lot more evolution as far as rotary polishing goes. As far as machines go, I think we can have quieter machines. Too many of them still today are too loud. Straight cut gears, angle cut gears are a bit quieter. Helical gears, some of them have got that. More ergonomic, a lot more elastomers on them to make them more comfortable. I've got a fine German-made machine that's ultra low speed, so it's 200 RPM to 1500. Has no trigger, has push pads on it, so you just push the right side pad for go up and left side one to go down, and then it has a light to indicate what the speed is. So the lights change, and that's a really nice machine. It's discontinued now, but it's a really nice machine. See if we can see that as well. But as far as liquids go, I just hope that compounds and polishers actually get a lot better. We see maybe a new single polish system or a one polish that you can literally use most of the time for everything. And yeah, basically getting away from pastes, and yeah, stuff like that. But outside of that, I'm really not sure. I've been out of the game a little bit to sort of know what people want or really where the next evolution is going to go as far as product.
Yeah, I think probably one more to add is the cordless factor these days. Everything's
yes,
that's coming at a great rate of knots too.
I have something to say about something like that, and again, it might be another pipe dream, but I think cordless is definitely a great thing, and I think they'll get a lot better. I don't like the fact that you have the battery at the back of the machine by the rear handle. I don't want it there, but I know that's probably the only place you can put it. But my hope and my dream is that with companies like, and I think it's Emron or Emrod and a few other companies working on wireless power, that we may get to the day eventually where you can, hey, let's say you've got, like I had a 7 by 7 meter polishing bay, okay, with walls and all that stuff. You get this little square, you get your typical like USB charger for your phone, something that small. It's got no cord attached to it. You just plug that into the wall, into the power socket, turn it on, and as long as you're within a 5 by 5 meter or 7 by 7 meter or 4 by 4 meter bay, it will power your polisher wirelessly.
Oh yeah, like
that would be
like wireless chargely sort of setup thing, but no battery.
Yeah, like wireless power coming through. It could be coming through into your building or in the air, or it could be via something like that. Maybe that won't work at all, but that's something I'd like to see going beyond batteries.
Yeah.
But again, who knows what the future lies? Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Nikola Tesla. He was a genius guy. Again, probably a bit, genius, a little bit of nutbag mixed in. I'm not sure, but the guy, to me, he was a genius, better than Edison by far. And he could do wireless power back then. I think it was 4 kilometers or something away. He was lighting bulbs in the ground and shit. So hopefully one day we get to that point where, we have wireless power. Is it going to be totally safe and no radiation, all that sort of stuff? Who the hell knows? But I think cordless is great, but I don't think it's the ultimate end-all solution eventually forever. Like I hope wireless power does happen. And Emerald, I think, is working on it. It's a New Zealand, I think they're a New Zealand company. And I've emailed them about it. And they're working on it, and they're working on bringing that in. But how long it's going to take, who knows? And who knows if they're going to even pass legislation to allow it to happen, because you can have power for free or at reduced cost. Maybe the powers that be don't want that I want you to always be paying for it. But again, cordless, yeah, cordless is really good. I think it's Shine Mate and I think Flex that are leading the way best with the cordless at the moment, based on what people are saying. That Flex ones last a fair while, and you get two batteries with it, and you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah. Another one I've heard is Milwaukee have bought out their own polisher.
Yes.
So their battery technology is awesome, but the speed of the machine is nothing compared, and the balance of it is nothing compared to what a Rupes is.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So and Rupes are already onto it anyway with their new 75 cordless. Yeah, the new one they've just bought out, that's cordless as well. So improving on the Nano. So you think the 15 and 21 are next?
I never bought the Nano, but I've heard good and bad stories. Same with the Flex PXE80. I've played with the PXE80 a little bit. It's quite good, but unless you run it on speed 3 or 4, it's slow, bit gutless, but pretty good.
Yeah, my Nano runs full noise because I think that's what it needs.
Yeah, but I hope that again, going back to machines, I suppose technology, as much as it would raise the cost of a machine by about $200. Excuse me, I had a chest infection the other week and I'm coughing every now and then. It pisses me off. But, even though it probably would raise the cost of a polisher by about $200, if we have every machine having brushless motors, it'd be a lot better because they are more efficient and I think they're more powerful as well. I know Rupes has got, I think one of theirs is brushless, but there are some other ones that have brushless motors in them too. I think is it SP Tools or Snap-on or one of the other ones has got a 3-inch mini rotary or something like that. Or mini DA that's basically 3-inch one that's brushless motored. They definitely are far better, and getting rid of having to change brushes is certainly a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so what I want to keep running with this pod is finish off with my 5 questions, my top 5 questions. So, what was your first ever detailing job?
As far as car or job?
Car job, yeah.
Okay.
Taking it back.
That's going back 30 years. That's hard. It was. Let me think. It was a Holden Astra VXR, a black one that I did at Metro Holden for 2 days. That was 07. I think he had one in 07. Maybe it was going back more than that. As far as a professional, I think that was one of the earliest ones, but obviously in the 90s, I think it was an old Cressida. Actually, an old Cressida the guy wanted me to polish up. Yeah, an old Cressida, 77 Cressida in like a creamy colour. And it was pretty bad. Door jambs had surface rust and stuff like that. Hand polished the whole thing. And one of the earliest ones I did was a Porsche 80. I think it was like early 80s Porsche 911, painted black by a guy that worked at Ferrari painting cars, and it was glassy as anything. It was like had swells all over it, but it was dead flat. And before I could machine polish, I actually hand polished it for 30 hours and made it swell free.
All right.
That was the early days. Everything was hand polishing in the first few years.
Awesome.
I wouldn't do that again because I can probably hand polish for hours and hours, wouldn't bother me, but I built my strength up. But I wouldn't do it too much these days. God, it's crazy.
I definitely don't do any hand polishing. All right. Probably back on the polisher. You might have already explained it, but your favourite polisher?
Of all time, machine?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me think about this one. I have to admit, some people say it's heavy. But the Makita 9227, it's just so much quieter. It's a little bit quieter than the European rotaries because it's got angle cut gears, I believe. But I just love that thing. I pick it up and it's 3 kilos or 3.2 kilos now with a 3.7 version, and I pick it up like it weighs nothing. It's just maneuvers so easily, and it's a delight to use. It just is. Like, I just love that thing. And I've still got one, and yeah, I mean, I suppose if I had to have, and this is allowing me to have a number 2, and it sounds nuts, but my Flex L3406 VRG stone grinder with a Dynabrade head on it, which it still has on it. That's my other one. That thing is an absolute destroyer of defects. You can literally polish. You can literally get a typical Commodore Falcon car with any car with medium hardness paint, and literally polish half a bonnet in 5 minutes and have it 90% done with that machine. It just destroys defects.
Wow.
And the clarity it achieves is phenomenal, especially if you put it in loft mode. That stone grinder has 1500 watts, a 1500 watt motor. Our wattage with motors is not as like, you can have 500 watt motor from Rupes in their machine, it'll be ballsy as anything, and you can have 1,000 watt one in another machine from a different supplier, like, from like a Chinese one, and it's got no balls. But this thing had 1500 watts. It had 30 something Newton meters of torque or something, and literally you can put your whole body weight on it at a speed 3. You can't stop it with that down. You literally cannot stop it. You can't bog it down at all. So that's what I mean. Like, that's what I could do. That's my second favorite. Even though it's with that machine, it was 2.1 kilos, but it had that much grunt, and you put the Dynabrade head on that, and that would be 2.7, 2.8 kilo. So it was still under the weight of a Makita, but it had so much grunt.
Sounds like a monster.
Oh, dude, the thing's mad. I've got videos of it up on YouTube of me literally putting, like, I only had one thing. One video I only had one hand free to use. The other one I think I had both. And I literally had it on one, and it was bogging down a little bit. But by speed 3 and 4, literally it was just like full, much arm weight as I could put on it, and it's just like, nah, she's not stopping.
Nice. All right. Probably we haven't touched much on this, but or both of them, ceramic or PPF.
Oh boy.
I know they have their places, but maybe think of your own car or.
I'm thinking about the AUXR if I ever got it repainted, because it is factory paint from '98. I would go PPF.
Yeah, to preserve it.
Yeah, that's right. Fresh paint, PPF, bang, no worries. Ceramics are good, but a lot of them can water spot quite badly. Some don't that much, some do. PPF though, yes, maybe they have a few flaws. Maybe they can watermark too, but yeah, definitely PPF.
Yeah. No, and I'll want to dive into a lot of coatings and PPF too on the pod. So yeah, if anyone else wants to come on and jump about ceramic or PPF, I want to reach out to a few that I already know of. So it'd be cool to get everyone's side of that. I know there's all sorts of arguments, but yeah, I think each of them still have their place in the industry.
Yep, absolutely.
This one might be a bit contradicting of the other one, but best detailing tool / product invented.
Oh boy,
I didn't tell you these questions either before, so
glad. Tool
or product.
Oh wow, okay. Gee, that's a hard one to think of in an instant.
Favorite.
Well, this might be a bit off left of center, or a bit different, but encapsulation cleaners for carpets. That's one of my favorite things. It was not very well known for a number of years, and there's probably people around the world, some people still don't even know what the hell that is. But it basically can reduce the amount of time you have to do extraction shampooing by about half in some cases. And it's really good on, like, someone's car that the roof line, it was a smoker and the roof line was all yellow on the driver's side, pulls that straight off just with a damp towel. I really like encapsulation technology. I think it's a great thing because, and there are even carpet shampoo products that have encapsulation technology in it. Like my mentor's got one, Hot Shot, I think it's called. It has encapsulation tech in it, so it prevents wicking. So you're basically not going to get the restaining or you didn't get all the soap out of it, and it's going to then obviously stick in the baseboard and then have some stains come back up. So it prevents that problem. So basically, you can have a shampoo, or you can use the encapsulation, spray it on there on the seat or a carpet. Give it 10 minutes or a few minutes, or brush it straight away. Leave it for 5-10 minutes and brush it again if you want. Leave it for 24 hours. It goes all brittle and everything goes brittle and dry and powder. Vacuum it up, and then the more you vacuum that area, the better and better and better it gets. Or you can use it wet like a shampoo and literally do the same job as a shampoo, but have none of the typical traditional shampoo's downsides. And yeah, you can use it in headliners, and you can even use it on door panels and stuff like that sometimes. That's really cool technology. That's probably one of my favorites.
All right. Can't say I've heard of it. Yeah.
You haven't heard of it? Okay.
No.
Look up a company called, what is it called again? They've got a product called they've got a bunch of different ones. They've got one though, it's called NCAP Fine Fabric. I've forgotten what they're called, but the company called Floor Master here in Adelaide has those. I can't think of the brand of it. I'll let you know afterwards, but I wish I could think of it right now. But they're a East Coast company that make them, and a 5-litre container might cost you $50, $60, $70, and you can dilute it down a fair way for different use. And the NCAP Fine Fabric, I've used it for a number of years on customers' cars, and it's basically that. It's gentle enough to not hurt any of your, if you've got a wide variety of different carpet materials in cars, from, your modern cars that have, some of them have visually have nothing but like felt on the bottom. There's just nothing there, to a really high quality carpet in an Audi or something like that, and it won't hurt them. Whereas you might get the wrong NCAP cleaner and it might damage some of them.
Nice. Yeah, right.
There's ones for, like one called Pet and Flood. There's another one for urine and other stains. So you can buy, up to 10 different styles, but you could just have fine fabric and use it for headliners. You could use it for just, okay, this thing's not that bad really at all. I'll just do that and that's it. Maybe steam over the top of it after. Rather than having to shampoo every car, or 80% of the cars you do.
Yeah, I'm not big on interiors, and I actually don't have a shampoo. I don't offer that service because everyone else in town does. So I am looking.
To me, unless somebody was going to charge, unless somebody's going to pay me like at least $300 to $500 or more to do an interior on most vehicles, to the way it needs to be done in some cases, you're charging $100, $150, and sometimes you spend a whole day and make nothing. It's very easy to make nothing per hour doing interiors. But sometimes they can be lucrative. Depends how good you are, how good your setup is. But they can be pretty. You can charge under $200 and make nothing per hour after you finished it. A lot of the time.
Yeah, I am looking at a steamer though. That was another investment. I think
used them for many years. Love them.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Your interests outside of detailing.
Okay.
Outside of work.
Tons of them. I'm a man of many passions. Basically, my first love, movies, old video formats, VHS, Betamax, Super Betamax, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, even old Japanese VHD, which was basically vinyl video. So like a vinyl record that was a video movie, and it was in 3D. They had 3D in Japan in the 80s at home, which is nuts. I love that stuff. Obviously, retro video gaming from anything from 77 up to about 2013. My last console I've ever going to buy is an Xbox 360, and I'm a Forza Motorsport 4 fanatic. I've got 6 copies, and I'm still playing it today after playing it in America in 2013. I'm still going. I'm still painting cars, in custom colors and making my own brand logos on there, like the real ones are. I just love that. But yeah, video games, Super Nintendos. I've got 12, 15 consoles. I've got Commodore 64, 128D, Amiga, all sorts of stuff. And obviously, I also love darts. In a motorsport a lot. My dad's got a race team, so he races in an MG ZT V8 with a Ford SVO engine. I think it's 4.9 or a 5-litre. about 600 horsepower. So I love motorsport of all kinds, and tons of other things, sports. Football to some degree, not that much, but yeah, darts is my thing. I love watching the World Championships and most of the things that they do over in the UK and Europe. Love darts. I just sit down and watch it for hours and hours, no problem. Love playing it too. So that's just a small thing. I have a lot of interest where I actually don't go anywhere and actually watch it live or do it, but I actually watch it like X Games and those Nitro. Was it not Nitro? The race buggies in the US, that sort of stuff. Outdoor motocross. Love watching that stuff. Those guys are nuts. I love them. They're bloody amazing. Some of those guys that do that stuff, and even the guys that do X Games, like do BMX, big air and all that stuff. BMX and skateboard, big air, like unbelievable what some of these guys are doing, the tricks they do, and the height they get, and the lack of fear that they have. I couldn't skateboard for crap. I've tried. I'm hopeless. So yeah, I have a lot, and I don't, necessarily, go to a lot of it or do a lot of it, but I love watching. I love looking at a lot of stuff.
Yep. And obviously, you're probably a big fan of the Adelaide 500 coming back.
Oh, dude, absolutely. I went in 2020, the only time I'd ever gone, and then as soon as that was finished, it was like, and it wasn't the best one I've ever watched, but it was good to finally go to one. And the next thing you know, they announced that it's dead and gone. And I knew the day would come when that would kill that off, because every good thing comes to an end, sadly. But fortunately, we've got a premier now that I'm never really been never been a Labor sort of guy, but I'm not sort of one sided. I sort of just base it on who wants to go into politics and at the time and who's around. But I'm glad that Peter Malinauskas here, the premier, actually said what he promised to do, he actually delivered on it, which is good, because a lot of people promise stuff but don't deliver it. So it was stupid of the Liberal government and the other to get rid of the motorsport board, and obviously also can that event, because it's probably one of the biggest ones in Adelaide. So it's a great thing to have it back. But how long it will stay for, I don't know. It might stay for another 10 years. It might disappear again. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd say nearly the country, because I was very fortunate going to trade school in Adelaide, and nearly every time that was on in March every year, and I've been quite a few, and I did go to the last one in 2020, and I've already booked accommodation for this year's, but we'll see where it ends up.
What I'm disappointed about is the fact that they're not going to run the full track like Formula One, because I was there in 85 and 86. My dad knew Don Dunstan, the premier at the time, and I was staying, I think, at a house, a big mansion, like right on the track. And man, it was loud. I mean, I've been to Indy multiple times on the Gold Coast in the early 2000s, and I've been all the way out to like Coolangatta, and you can still hear the bloody things. And Tweed Head's even been out there, and I can still hear it. But yeah, and back in '85, that full track was heaps good,
Yeah.
So
even I think it's the week before the Motorsport Festival. I think that's back as well. He's brought that in, and he's sorted a few other things out with Club Rego, which is even better.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I'm looking forward to, because I'm with the Falcon Car Club, and as of next January, I can get Club Rego. I can get historical. Well, they used to call historic Club Rego, because my car is the AU XR6 is 25 years old next year. So not long now, and get Club Rego.
Yeah, I think it's awesome, and not getting political here, but yeah, I think it was a good thing.
Yeah, it was. And look, there are some clubs that aren't too happy about it here locally. At least, at least one. And it's at least one that we're not going to allow anyone to join our club in 25 years. Club Rego. I'm like, that's just crazy. And so they're all flooding to us because we're doing it. So
yeah,
they're obviously they're not happy that you're going to have AU Falcons joining a club that's mostly about XWs and XYs.
Yeah.
So, whatever you reckon.
I think they've all got their place. They're still.
They do.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's been an idea, because I was Otherwise, we've been waiting another 6 years. Because registering that car is about $800 and something a year, and it's not like it's a massive killer to do that. But if you can get it for $200 and something and you get 90 days, which is probably still, my car probably doesn't do 90 days a year driving wise. Probably does 50. Like I don't drive it that much all the time. I'd love to, but I don't want to wear it out. Don't want to keep the K. Don't want to get the Ks up too high. And it needs some work, and it's having to leave it at least until probably end of next year before I can really do anything to it mechanically to make it absolutely tip top.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, awesome. All right, we'll
Very
wrap
good,
it
mate.
up. And
Yep.
for anyone that wants to reach out to you, Matt, how can they do that?
The easiest way is for me, really. I'm not the one I use it all the time. Well, I don't post a lot these days. But if you go on Facebook and just look up Matthew Gibb 2 T's and you'll see a photo of my blue AU and my black Toyota 86 as a cover picture, or you'll see me in front of my Bruce Lee cardboard cutout in the shed in my retro room. And get on there, add yourself as a friend, and send me a message. That's the easiest way. Because the other way is email, and that's too complicated. My email is my old business one. It's a bit hard to say. It's a bit long and a bit silly. Too many dots and this and that in it. And yeah, but that's the best way anyway.
Yeah, awesome. No, well, that's what I did. I was like, I might look this guy up and have a chat.
Yeah.
So,
And before we do go, real quickly though, like, what was it about? Like you said, like, who the hell is this guy? Like, what really was it about me that made you say that? Was it what I was saying, how I was presenting myself? What was it? Like, just the knowledge I was sharing? What was it?
it was, yeah, a lot of your knowledge. And I'm like, and then you said you're from Adelaide, and I'm like, far out, I'm only just down the road. So it was, yeah, and what your story was and where you ended up and what you've done. I think it's pretty
And again, look,
cool.
there are a lot of really, really great detailers in Australia that are smarter, that are business wise way better than I ever was. Cam Watson's one of them, and I have not a bad thing to say about that guy, even if we've had the occasional problem. I don't have a bad word to say about the guy at all, because he's been a lot more successful in business than I ever was. And there's a lot of great guys out there. I've always just been a guy that's passionate about what I was doing, and I've just had a very analytical brain, and just done tons of research and unanswered and asked tons and tons of questions and drive people crazy. That's the only reason why I've got the knowledge I have. I'm just very, very curious. I want to know why.
Yeah, no, I think that was awesome. And yeah, and definitely Cam, I know of Cam only from, I'm not a stalker, but I just think when I hear these guys like yourself overseas, I'm like, I got to find out more about these people. And Cam was one of them. We text every now and then, and he's already put his hand up to come on, and it didn't take long for him to.
I certainly look forward to hearing his story, what he wants to say too.
Yeah, I've heard it already a little bit from other podcasts, but I think if you don't listen to them all, well, jump on ours and we'll share it for you. And I think he has a really cool story and what he's doing now, and he's a distributor and everything. So he's got a fair bit going on and works crazy hours. So
yeah, man, I'm the kind of person that's like, I have not a jealous bone in my body at all, and if I see somebody doing way better than I ever did in the same thing, I'm happy for them. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. Like, and that's what I wish about this industry would like, think bigger. If you've got people around you that are nearby that are doing the same thing, get to know them, network with them, help each other out, raise each other up. Don't keep, the industry's got to think bigger. I mean, if I was getting into detailing again now, if I was, which I'm not, but if I was, and let's say I had a fix shop and a bunch of mobile guys, I'd be buying 1,000-litre containers of chemicals, supplying them 20 litres all ready to go whenever they need it for the vans. And I'd be doing stuff like having a wash bay where you could literally have it set up so you can have a floor that can go up and down or whatever, or you can literally wash the roof of a four-wheel drive like you're washing a blooming Mini. and have it all set up in a much bigger way with industrial blowers and all that sort of stuff. A lot of money to set up, but that's where the industry's got to go. It's got to think way bigger, buy in bulk, direct from manufacturers, or raw material suppliers like the foam guys I know in Europe, directly, and that sort of stuff. That's what I've been doing. I've done a little bit of that before, and I'd do it again if I was getting into it, but I'm not. I'm happy. I'm proud of what I've done. Certainly not as much as what some people have done. Some people have got $1 million detailing companies, and good on them. So yeah.
All right. Right, we'll wrap it up there, and thanks, Matt, for jumping on and for your time. So it's been awesome.
Thank you again for inviting me. I thought I'd never do another podcast. I was happy if I hadn't, but yeah, this could be my last hurrah. So thanks again.
Nah, no problem at all. All right, everyone, thanks for listening in. And if you want to find out more, we're on Instagram, Detailing Down Under Podcast, and flick us a message, like and share this pod, and we'll get it out there to everyone else. So,
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That was another episode of the Detailing Down Under podcast. Subscribe now for everything auto detailing in Australia.